ready to go. So just want to introduce myself. I'd like to acknowledge country and thanks Jenny for giving us the welcome, and acknowledge Dad who's in the room today, and also my brother. Thank you for the welcome, brother. It's always a special thing to have my kids witness their culture and country. And I'm on a bit of a workation, I'm calling it. I'm up here from Sydney, and I work at a place down in Melbourne that's a research translation centre, and I live on BigaagaARi Country, and I've been there for about 30 years. So through the presentation, I'm going to jump all over the place a little bit in regards to data sovereignty and how we got to a point where we got to this protocol and concept of BigaagaARi that I've shaped up over the years. It's pretty special to bring it back to our country. It was, I'll give you a bit of a context, 2020, just after COVID, my mother suddenly passed. I spoke to her on a Friday night. She said, I'll see you tomorrow. And Monday she passed away. The following Friday we ended up burying her, and then Dad came down and had a big funeral, big send-off for mum and all that sort of stuff, and brought me back to country. And it's probably the best thing that probably could have happened to me in regards to the healing that I needed to do and continue to want to go and do. I will talk a bit with a concept that was introduced to me by Brother Boy's also in the place as well. I want to acknowledge him as well. Tyson, good to see you, brother. And he introduced a concept that was actually developed by another woman named man. So all of these sort of intricacies have all come together for me over the last couple of years in regards to the protocol. And the concept was standpoint theory. And standpoint theory was created by our Uncle Gary Foley, and he's a Canadian man down in Melbourne. And come to find out that we stay involved with all this sort of stuff and sharing knowledge and all these types of things. So after the funeral, the first thing I wanted to do was go punch somebody. Honestly, Mum wouldn't let me fight or anything like that. The closest thing to contact sport that she would let me do was football and basketball and all those types of things. She didn't want me to get hurt. And those who do follow me on Instagram and all that sort of stuff, I went straight back home and created a boxing page, and I just fell in love with it because it was something that I could do now freely without Mum looking at me with sort of slanted eyes. But I'm going to introduce my centre a little bit more as well. So this is the artwork that my brother boy Dennis Golding had created for us after the funeral as well. So like I said, standpoint theory is going to be all over the place a little bit, but it'll all come to a head and make sense. Dennis and I had met when I was with an organisation for the Ministry of Health with the Agency for Clinical Innovation, and he designed some digital work for me, and I'm like, wow, digital stuff. Love it. I absolutely love digital technology, how we can wield it to our benefit and all these types of things, but the challenge there is to be on the forefront of it to make sure that we can make sure that we wield it to our benefits. So Dennis came in and he designed this beautiful artwork for us called Healing from the Ground. And he spoke to the essence of our centre. Our translation centre is a lived experience centre. It's about making sure that lived experience shapes policy for federal governments and international frameworks and all these types of things. So we use a lot of lived experience frameworks and all these types of things. And for that centre, I'm the Aboriginal co-design lead, and shaping our approach and work with mob across the nation. Big mob, biggest mob, as we all know. I'm fortunate enough to travel around Australia and meet people from all different walks of life. And this next quote that came up, I'm still learning how to use PowerPoint. I'm amazed that I can use PowerPoint on my iPad. But this beautiful quote was from Isabella out at Central Desert, where she spoke this quote at our first symposium around languages and ideas can only visit one country to another, but ideas and language can't speak for another place. And she was saying that certainly around government organisations going into communities to embed programs, and then somebody just rip it out because of the funding it ran out and all these types of things, or the community weren't doing it the way that the funders wanted it to happen. So she graced us with this beautiful quote, and it's something that I live by moving forward with BigaagaARi as we go forward as well. So going back to the boxing component, I think it's the boxing component, because I can't see none of my notes, sorry. So now we started off in 2021 at the centre, and then Dennis did your right side up there. He did it as our healing from the ground artwork, representing working with community, shaping how processes are designed and developed, just like how nature processes shapes country. Last year we've just been refunded for another 5 years. So the first 5 years of our centre was 5 years, first years of funding were 5 years, and we were fortunate enough to be refunded for another 5 years. And this is version 2 from Dennis as well. So along the way, we found a lot of things that are flourishing in the lived experience space, in the co-design space, in mob space around what really works for people. And that was his representation of our way forward now. Click. So as you can see, we all know this beautiful map. I have this map with all the different models all over the place. And how do we apply that worldview across a national sort of approach? And how do we, again, go back and bring an idea into community and make sure that we can honour that community's voice and honour that knowledge that they share with us as well? That's where my challenge came in as the co-designer. I think I had a young just to go before about what I do. Give you a bit of insight to my research history. The professor of my centre, she rang me up. She goes, "What are you doing?" I say, she came to our centre at the Ministry of Health, and she introduced the paper that we were writing, and it was called "Anyone Can Co-Design," with a question mark. Can anyone really co-design? It was written like this, and she goes, "Does anybody have any questions about the title?" And she wrote it up, and I said, no, nothing about the title. But then she wrote, "Palmer et al." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Any other questions?" And then I put my hand up and I said, "Well, what's et al?" And she goes, "Would that be you, Phil?" Because I was the ghost contributor to this paper. So that was my introduction to research. I had no idea about, and I still pretty much don't have any idea what I'm doing. I fly by the seat of my pants. And, but it's all led by a knowledge system that I was thankful to come across that was evidence-based. We all know that we live by our ways of doing and knowing and being and all these types of things. So embedding a knowledge system into an approach for the centre was the challenge for me to make sure that we do things right when we step on the country. We don't step on anybody's toes or community's toes and extract information that we didn't want to they didn't want to share. So the one on that right now is from a wonderful professor over in WA named Professor Michael Wright. He's embedded this framework over with the Western Australian local government over there with called Democrat and Libercart. It's an approach that he's had all of the sectors of social determinants for mob fall under. And he's got these old fellas answering to, these organisations answering to the old fellas of Country over that way. And all the elders have CEOs, numbers and all these types of things, so they literally hear about something going wrong in the community based on a policy. Elders ring the CEOs and find out, can you please explain? So it was a wonderful model for us to sort of latch onto with regards to approaching a systems approach for the centre. But coming back to Tyson now, not knowing at the time, I am a Muruwari Country man. I claim this country as my own, I do. But I was brought up on Muruwari Country prior to coming up here, and well, not coming up here, being connected to here. I lived out on the reserves of BigaagaARi until I was 12 years old, and we suddenly moved to Sydney, and been in Sydney for the last 30 years. But back and forward all the time up here to COFs and staying connected to Mob up here, and learned a lot over the last couple of years with Clark and the Freedom Schools, language revival and all these types of things, but at the same time it wasn't really something that I'm still not aware of. I know words, I know all these types of things, I can hear it, I can understand it, but I can't speak it fluently yet, which one day I'll get there, Clark, one day. But the one thing that was really wonderful for me with the evidence-based approach was Tyson's 8 Ways of Learning pedagogy. I'm not sure if you've all heard of it. New South Wales and the education systems have adopted it in regards to using it for teaching kids in schools and all these types of things. But it's was so familiar with for me. We got facilitators from a place called Gamilaraay in Day1, and they came and facilitated a whole bunch of health staff on how to approach the clinical pathway design to Indigenous knowledge processes. And they had the evidence. They had an evidence thesis that Tyson had developed for them, so they had something to latch onto. They needed this leverage to move forward. In 8 ways of it. And sitting there listening to it in these workshops, we had I think we had 6 workshops. We had homework and all these types of things. And I was like, well, it's the way that I live my life anyway. And come to find out, having a chat with Tyson over the years now, he actually learned it out of my country, out of Muruwari and all that type of stuff with the family out that way. I was like, oh, no wonder. It was flogged into me when I was a little kid from then. So, we've got 8 ways of learning, we've got never can't. We're going to be melding it into a little bit now, and then we're going to talk about the boxing. So, coming back to Sydney, I started getting flogged basically, and thinking that you're going to be this wonderful athlete in the boxing gym. There's probably visions of delusion and all these types of things in your late age and your sort of things. Met a coach who was the former Australian boxing coach. He toured with Australia, the Commonwealth Games and the Olympic Games and all these types of things. I was fortunate enough to be guided towards him, and I think that's where Mum's influence came in from the other side. She took me to this boxing ring down at Redfern, and I met this old fellow. And the only time that I actually felt something in this grief that I was feeling after Mum passed suddenly was not punching people, it was actually getting hit by people. And that was the whole reason I went to go boxing. I just wanted to get punched by somebody. So it was a sort of a controlled form of self-harm. But this old coach, he was a wise old fellow, and he said, no, if you're going to not protect yourself, you're not going to be able to come down here and train for me anymore. And I was like, oh, right, and then, so I had to develop a way and a strategy of how to protect myself, basically. And this is where BigaagaARi comes into play. So I know I've got 15 minutes now, Professor, I've been timing myself.
Oh, you're still good.
Sorry?
Your time's good.
Now, just got to make sure. Well, that's permanent. So what I had to make sure of was when I got back into the boxing ring, I had to figure out what I was actually fighting for, and that's when it sort of dawned on me that there's a difference between fighting and boxing, and it's like, well, okay, there's different capabilities that come with this sort of approach to your life and martial arts. It is a martial art. I'm debating about that, but it's about understanding about why you're doing it. So I had to come back to my roots and all these types of things, and I developed with Clark, actually, got myself at one stage around understanding a person's range. So when you fight on people, you've got to understand when a punch is coming through, right? So we think about a foot like this. You've got 6 toes. So the reason I got this up here was because I had to come back to what really mattered to me, and this is coming back down to my values. Right? So the first thing I had to think of was, those doodle jargons and the two others that are down in Sydney down there. One thing that means most matters to me. And then that thing another thing underneath it. And then think about this 6-toed person here, turning his foot this way. And then I have to think of another 2 things. And then another 2 things. And then from there, I have to think of 4 things that supports these 4 things. So you think about kids, my art, my interests, my health, and then I got to think about job, electricity, Wi-Fi now because you've got kids on iPads and stuff, and then gas just for the sakes of argument. So they're 4 things that I'm always going to make sure that I've got firmly in place for people. And then you've got to think about 4 things that threaten them. So you can think about when you're at work, you've got timelines, you've got debt that's due, you've got bills that are coming in, and then you've got the risk of all the food that you eat and all those type of things. So not watching your nutrition, you can threaten your own health and well-being. That's going back to Brother Boy's presentation before around that's the Western approach. And when you think about black fellows and their non-linear approaches, it's always like this. It comes in this circular motion and it's an organic sort of thing that just keeps evolving and pops up whenever you want to, and all these types of things just shock you out of the blue. So this was my boxing method. So if I had chalk, I would draw all the carpet. So if I put that on the floor, that's my size of my foot, and it also measures my range. It also measures the person's, whenever he's within range, that's when the threat happens to me, is when somebody starts getting into my range, they can threaten me with whatever strengths they have. So it's all about capability and all this sort of stuff in the boxing space that I took out of it. Once I learned that, what I knew I was fighting for, what my capabilities were, I knew who not to pick a fight with, and then move on into managing my well-being in regards to knowing what my threats are. Okay, bills are due, all these types of things. Oh, this one's got a right hook, this one's got a left hook, managing the systems like that. So I was embedding the 8 ways of learning process into that model as well. This is what, in a quick glance, this is what the Life Centre is sort of tasked with doing across the nation, with all those nations as well. So as you can see in the middle here, this is us as the Aboriginal pathways, and everything from their pathways links to everybody else's lived experiences, priorities as well. So very, very confused, but there is a lot of meaning behind it, just like how we do with art and all these types of things. And along the way, we've uncovered a few things around this notion of intergenerational trauma. And a couple of elders that we've had a chat with were, whenever we hear about research and stories and all these types of things about communities' challenges, a lot of those challenges actually come from systems design, around systems policies that are built at the detriment to black folks all the time. It puts us under pressure all the time. So that compounding of all these renewed policies and all these types of things, it's not the DNA that is intergenerational, it's the system that's ongoing to keep us down. So it's pressure, putting that pressure on top of us constantly. So we've coined a term called compound trauma. So that's one of the things that, and sort of lifted it from that deficit model of language, saying that we are at faulty and all that sort of stuff, when it's the system's fault. So that's one of those big pretty pictures that has a lot of meaning behind it, and sorry that we got caught up in that one. And where I said earlier around we've been funded for another 5 years, so BigaagaARi, the bottom one here, has been shifted into this next iteration of what the centre looks like. So this Medical Research Future Fund ends in 2029. And in that, We have now translated that protocol and that model into an app. So the app would be those lines that you see on the board where people can upload what matters most to them, what contributes to their wellbeing and what threatens their wellbeing. And this whole database gets collected on our website, or not our website, it's a closed website, closed database, all underpinned by Indigenous knowledge data sovereignty frameworks, where we've got a lead professor named Oliver Black. I'm pretty sure he's came up here from Wellbeing Country. I seen little superstar dancing in a movie the other day and saw the school on a video that he presented. But Ollie Black is one of our leads around data sovereignty, and he's from the ACU, uses Delight Lovett's frameworks of Indigenous data sovereignty. And then from that database, an individual can use your own phone and talk about your own footprint, what matters most to you, and then you can choose. We use a dynamic consent in the space around what you choose to share and what you want to share and all these types of stuff. But also, if you have shared it, you can bring it back. You take back your data and close it off for yourself. So the dream is for, by the end of 2029, we're going to have a fully functional augmented reality app that will showcase people's threats and what matters most to them and what contributes to their wellbeing, but also a fully functional data set as well for, my hopes is AMS, because that's my bread and butter, primary care and all that type of stuff around AMS is using it with their health workers, have their chats with their patients and the like, to understand what threatens their wellbeing, what makes their mental health decline and all these types of things. But also scaling it up to the organisation as an example, Gamilaraay here in town as an AMS, understanding what the community is actually saying about their needs. So if everybody's in community talking about the same sorts of threats, that's where the strategy can go towards around quality improvement, rather than government-funded things imposing these ideas that visit country and thinking that they're knowing all these types of things, not a genuine localised content. Whereas the BigaagaARi method will be able to capture all of this data of the community and then showcase what that footprint for what looks like, what are the needs, what are the threats. And I think that's me. And I've got a bit of time for questions that I left there for you too. Yeah, you go. So I've got 5 minutes, I'm right on time, and I hope I've got some curious minds in the crowd. Otherwise, I'm going to drag Tyson up here. My hair towel, so I mentioned earlier what our hair towel is. I published my first paper last year, which was pretty cool. Got a little warm fuzzy feeling about it all. There's an introduction to the protocol. It's called Danger is a State. Danger is a sign, not a state. Whereas mental health language and all these types of things seems to label our people all the time with this diagnosis of something, when it's not realising what the contributing factors are to the mental health decline. So we've got to make sure how we can address the environment around our people when we're supporting them, and how do we set systems up around them as well to make sure that they can address them. Yes, Mr.
Yeah, but could you explain that out a bit more for everybody, like to bring us back in the country, talk about that, the signal, you know, that danger is just part of a signal, it's just in your landscape. Like that example now with the yellow flower mullet one.
We heard it this morning when Brother Troy made mention of the mullet coming up the river stream and all those types of things, and not going down to look for it. But what comes with the mullet, with babies and all these types of things, the shark. You know, we got risk of shark in the river systems at these points. Do we swim? Do we treat? It's around about making choice when we understand the signs and the signifiers. And that's where the values, protocols, and all these types of things. Do we break protocol, go swimming? Or do we stay fishing? You know, do we make sure that we put ourselves at risk for these things? One of the reasons I named it BigaagaARi, I forgot to mention in the beginning, was when I went back home and I messaged Clark late in the evening and I said, "What's the word for danger?" And he's like, "Oh, give me a couple of days, I'll check it out." And then it must have took him a couple of days, otherwise he would just leave me hanging. But he must have done a bit of research, because in the dictionary, the Wellbeing dictionary, couldn't find a word for danger itself. The word itself as danger. The only thing, the closest thing that he could find was this thing that you needed to watch out for, something that was at risk for you rather than danger. It's because us old people, well, the old people and black fellows with these values and protocols instilled in us, we knew law, we knew what would hurt us, we knew when the signs were at the right time to go and look for something, when not to do something. You know, we had these old stories that were passed down through us to make sure that we follow rules for country, to make sure that we look after it as well, and our totems and stuff like that. I mentioned a lot in regards to that Indigenous knowledge approaches. That's how we're leading our flagship gathering tool with MOB. Auntie Sabella's statement around ideas of change. BigaagaARi won't be its name in some other place. It will be their language for whatever watch out is for them. So we're leaving that bit open as well, but the protocol remains the same. It's about understanding what the threats are to community, what matters to community, and how they address it. And you have 2 minutes, I'm going to run away then.
No, you've got more time. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what your usage numbers currently are with the app.
Sorry?
Just with the app and how it's rolling out. If you have
Oh.
numbers on.
I didn't mention earlier, I'm a lot of things, eh? I call myself the Aboriginal with my side business. So I love technology, as I said before, but there's this thing called a test flight that Apple and Android apps use. And we've had I think we've had an uptake of about 40 people at the moment, because it's been a bit of a closed workshop sort of thing. But we're also gathering health workers' perspectives across the nation as well. So I'm not sure if anyone's aware of NATCWIP. They're the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Wealth Health Workers and Practitioners. Massive acronym. We've got access to their membership base. So we circulate a weekly meeting for what we're jumping on the Zoom, shape out how does BigaagaARi look like for them, what's needed, how they're going to have yards with local country and all these types of things. So the use hasn't been, we haven't shared the app just yet. We haven't invited anybody to test flight, but it's looking very promising. The health workers are loving the idea that it's a knowledge, Indigenous knowledge built sort of approach, and love the fact that they can rename it themselves as well and own the data as well, and all these types of things. Any other questions? You got 5 seconds, because that's the rule I've been told.
Deadly.
Yeah. That's it, Professor.